Ja, da har klokka blitt 8:30, og folk strømmer fortsatt på. Vi slipper de inn, men jeg startet å snakke fordi vi har fullspekket program, og vi må komme i gang. Hei, hei, og god morgen alle sammen. Jeg starter på norsk før vi slår over til engelsk etterpå. På veien av NF&TA og fellesskapet så ønsker jeg dere hjertelig velkommen til webinar med Louise Byg Kongsholm fra Pej Gruppen. Jeg skal si noen få ord om hva som er bakgrunnen for dette webinaret, og det er at vi er et bedriftsnettverk finansiert av Innovasjon Norge som heter Fellesskapet, og det er bedriftsnettverket for den nye norske gjenbruksnæringen, som er eiet av Borti, så Borti i spissen. NF&TA er næringsklyngen for norsk mote, tekstil og sport, og jeg er så heldig å være prosjektleder for fellesskapet på veien av NF&TA. Og det var Camilla og Helene fra Borti som tok initiativet for å invitere Louise for å fortelle oss litt om hvordan endringen i samfunn påvirker forbrukeratferd, og hva disse trendene har med gjenbruk og gjensalg å gjøre. Så vi gleder oss veldig, veldig til å høre hva Louise har å si. Hun trenger nesten ingen introduksjon. Hun er blant annet eier og leder i Pej Gruppen. Hun er trendforsker, forfatter, editor-in-chief, konsulent, og ikke minst er hun en svært ettertraktet foredragsholder. Så vi er veldig heldige å ha fått hun til å snakke for oss i dag, og gleder oss til å lære og blir inspirert. Så før jeg gir ordet til Louise, så må jeg si noen få ting. Vi har litt problemer med Teams-innstillinger, så det er veldig fint at alle passer på at mikrofonen deres og helst også kameraen er slått av mens Louise snakker. Så blir webinaret tatt opp, og det blir sendt ut til dere etterpå. Og om det er spørsmål underveis, så skriv de veldig gjerne i chatten, og hvis vi har litt tid på slutten, så skal jeg lese de opp, og så kan Louise svare på det vi har tid til å svare på. Så vær så god, Louise, mikrofonen er din. The screen is yours. Da er vi i gang.
Takk, og selv om det kan ses en liten bit kunstigt, så kommer jeg gjøre det her på engelsk, fordi det har I bedt om. So let's switch over to English, just to make sure that everybody understands my weird Danish, Norwegian, Swedish combo. I'm trying to speak, we call it circus language, because some of the old circuses, if they would travel around Scandinavia, they would speak this weird combination of all three Scandinavian languages. But let's do this in English, and all of my slides are in English. Thank you for inviting me. I'm in the middle of Jylland in Denmark, in the middle of freaking nowhere, in a conference room, and unfortunately I have people who are repairing the wall behind me on the outside, so there might be a bit of noise during the presentation, but just ignore that. The presentation has been sent already to the team that's arranged this webinar, and it will be sent to you afterwards as a PDF. If you have any questions along the way, just drop them in the chat. You can drop them in Norwegian, English, German, not French, in any language, and we'll try to set aside about 5 minutes in the end to answer any questions. Afterwards, if you have any further questions, the team is happy to share my email address and you can reach out. I do have to leave this webinar quite quickly, not that I don't want to talk to you guys, but I have to drive 3 hours to Copenhagen to do a presentation for another client this afternoon, and I want to make sure that I reach that in time. But anywho, let's start. My introduction was very fine in terms of who I am. I run this company. I've been running it for about 14 years now. I write books. I'm an editor-in-chief and do talks like this quite often. My intro would be that we live in a world where change is the new normal, and you all live in a world and you have jobs in the different companies that you are in, where change is what is needed. It would be quite a boring job and quite a boring company if change didn't happen. For those of you who are in the lifestyle industries, you are very much dependent on new colors, new styles, new prints, new sales channels, new communication channels, and the entire media range is very dependent on change. Just imagine some of the major print magazines or online channels or TV programs like Godmorgen Denmark, Godmorgen Norge, if they said, you don't have to buy anything new, you have to sit down, you need to eat the same meals that you did 10 years ago, you have to wear the same clothes that you did 10 years ago. We're all very much dependent on change. It's not that that this is new to us, but what has changed, and if you look at the image that I put behind the wording, is that we've gone from just change is normal and change is acceptable to chaos. The feeling of absolute chaos. And we see this in very different ways. There are crises happening at the same time all over the place. And we see in some of the most recent consumer studies that the modern consumer has had enough. We're fed up. We're fed up with breaking news, with war, inflation, interest rates, cost of living crisis. The world's gone crazy, and we're bombarded with news from all over the world that we have to take in. So on a regular daily run around in the news media, you would have to relate to maybe a boy in Kenya who's fallen off his bicycle and hit his knee. And if you look back just a few generations, you would only be worried about what was going on in the area around you very locally. We have to worry about everything because we're exposed to everything. And what happens is that we mentally shut down. We stop watching the news. We stop listening to the news. We do not respond to breaking news. We focus on our own life. We focus on what's most important, our family, our company, and as a very clear example, what's for dinner tonight. That's what we focus on because everything else seems a bit chaotic. This is an acronym that came into light already during the first lockdown during Corona. It's not an acronym that we've invented. It's from military strategy, and it seems that we lend inspiration from military strategy whenever the world is completely crazy because they, in the military, they're used to handling very extreme situations. The acronym is based on an understanding of the world that's very volatile, where things shift all the time. Things are very uncertain. You don't completely understand what's going on. You can make decisions, but you feel that the information that you're making decisions on is a bit off track, or you're not really sure whether you have all the information readily available. It's a complex world. Things are shifting all the time. Things are interrelated. And if you don't understand how things are related, I'll give you an example. We have high interest rates now because we had high inflation. We had high inflation because consumer spending shifted towards specific industries during Corona, which increased production price and transportation price. And if you don't understand what's going on and all the political choices that are being made, the world does not make sense. And then ambiguity, that the same set of data, the same information can point in very different directions. And this leads to either the modern consumer just shutting down, focusing on themselves, and in an organizational perspective, it leads to brands and organizations having to focus on who they are, what they stand for, what key products and key services they are known for, and then trying to shut down from all the noise. And if you thought that the VUCA acronym is crazy in itself, it got a brother or a sister last year. The new acronym that everybody's talking about is BARNI, and it's the same understanding, but it's just become even more extreme. So the understanding that the world is very brittle, very insecure, very on the verge of breakdown, that modern consumers, and we all are very anxious, that everything that we see before us is non-linear, it shifts in different directions. And in general, we've gone from complexity to everything being incomprehensible. And just getting these acronyms into your wording, your way of describing the world, will help you and your colleagues to say, I feel the world is chaos. My colleague feels the world is chaos. The modern consumer feels the world is chaos. And what does this lead to in terms of product, services, and communication. The conclusion is keep things simple. Communicate very simply to a modern consumer who is all over the place. We need a compass to navigate in these chaotic times, and I do choose my imagery very carefully. We need to be able to navigate long term. You need to find out who you want to be long term and what your company is like long term, where you want to go, where you're heading, where your leading star is. And then at the same time, you need to navigate extremely short term. The combination of long term and short term is good for you to think about, because you cannot navigate short term and make decisions about what you want to do today, where your company needs to go today, unless you know where you're heading long term. Otherwise, you'll be running around in circles. If we look at the very short term, just understanding that this is a chaotic time and that we have many black swans in the same lake is very interesting. I don't know if you know the analogy of the one black swan that sort of kills the nice image of a lake that's very calm. There's white swans, and then one black swan turns up. But we have several black swans at the same time. We have war, we have inflation, we have cost of living crisis. We have everything that's going on at the same time. And some of these swans are in close relation. Some of them are not. Also looking at some of the economy stories. I don't know if any of you have studied business economics. And I think for all of us, no matter if we did study business and economics earlier in our lives, or whether we had experience with previous crises, this has been sort of 3 years of understanding economy. What is inflation? How important is inflation rates? How important is interest rates? We didn't care about that before Corona, because inflation was less than 1%. Interest rates didn't exist, but money needs to cost money. So this is what we're learning now. And what we're also learning is that no company, no person, no country is an isolated island. And I'm speaking specifically about you in Norway. Past crises, financial crisis back in 2008 to 2012 did not hit you in Norway. You tried it for a few days, realized it was tough and you didn't want to be part of the global financial crisis. You decided to pump more money into the society and just forget about it, and that's fine. And I think maybe to some point and I'm being provocative, you also thought that this situation would not hit Norway, but it has. And the reaction pattern that we're seeing in the modern Norwegian consumer is the same as we've seen in past crises everywhere else. Perhaps for you, it's even the first time that sort of the average consumer now has to consider, how do I spend my money? Where do I get food on sale? I'm pressed for cash. So we see in a more extreme behavior. We're also seeing sort of the consumer confidence index is worse in Norway than it is in even Sweden, Denmark, Germany. As such, you're sort of 3 or 4 months behind the development in Denmark. So just sort of to give that positive note, things are sort of shifting towards a more positive, basic understanding and sort of a basic consumer sentiment now in Denmark. So it's also going to hit you maybe end of this year, begin next year. And what we all know from past crises is that they come and they go. But we have in both Denmark, Sweden, Germany, and even UK, they have Brexit as well. They have more experience with handling crises and also know in their gut that this will also disappear. One of the words that came up already during the first lockdowns was the understanding of perma-crisis, a permanent state of crisis, and the feeling that you get that no matter where you look, no matter what you do, there's a crisis. It can be the environmental crisis, it can be health crisis, it can be economic crisis, it can be political crisis, and that leads to the other word, polycrisis, which describes the situation where you have several crises at the same time. And this just speaks to what I mentioned in the very introduction, that the modern consumer feels that the world is chaotic and that every news media is talking about crisis. And I'm just trying to put some words into your minds and give you a vocabulary that makes it more easy to coin the sentiment of the modern consumer. They live in a world with perma-crisis and poly-crisis, and they live also in a world where the cost of basic living has gone up. And it's going to take until 2025, maybe even 2026, I'm sorry, for real wages to catch up with inflation and production costs, and ingredients cost in the food industry, as an example, needs to go down further to reflect that the production costs have gone down, but we don't see that in the supermarkets yet. And you will find during this presentation that I will refer to supermarkets and your daily spending habits in supermarkets and buying fruit and produce, because everybody does that. So it's so easy to talk about that. We've seen it in supermarkets in several different ways. We shop less ecological products. We hunt for products that are close to the sale-by date. We buy more private label. We buy less expensive products. We buy less wine, less red meat. And overall, this is good for the environment. It's probably also good for our health, but it's a change in shopping behavior that is clearly related to inflation rates and cost of living crisis. A word that came up last year in September based on a trend report done by the Danish media company called FELLES is frugality. I'll give you the name in Danish because it also makes sense in Norway. Mådehold. Mådehold or frugality is the thinking that a modern consumer has become more conscious and has become more intentional in their spending pattern, because now they know money costs money and that they're working very hard to make ends meet. This means that we will save, we will postpone bigger purchases, we will go bargain hunting, and we will also go crazy in recommerce. And recommerce is a big topic. It covers everything from you selling products from your house, things that you cleared out during the Easter break. You've been through all your cupboards. You found out that you had kitchen items and clothes that you didn't really need. You try to sell them either online or offline. And it's the same behavior the other way around, where you buy clothes or items secondhand because it's good for the environment, it's saving money. And most products and clothing items are able to have several lives. If you look at the entire range of recommerce platforms, both in the physical world and the online world, they have exploded within the last 10 years. And if you look at just the physical world and take all of the secondhand, both the old type of secondhand shops and the newer kind of secondhand shops and the kilo shops and add them all together, they are one of the biggest retail chains comparable with any other, apart maybe from the supermarkets. And what's interesting with recommerce retail setup is that most of them get either very cheap rent or free rent. Some of them even have staff that don't need payment, and some of them don't have to pay VAT. And that's a problem in a competitive perspective. If you look online, it's exploded as well. In Denmark, you probably know that Trend Sales came out of Denmark. It's now been purchased by one of the other big players. You have DBA, which is Den Blå Avis in Denmark, Finn in Norway. Just look at that. If you map out the total range of physical and online recommerce platforms, they have exploded. And I'm giving you these slides. It's a bit premature, I'm sorry. We are setting into printing our Retail Mega Mag number 3 next week. So this article has not been edited, but I wanted to show it to you. This is an article that's based on the overall e-commerce trends that are shaping modern consumer spending in 2024. And it's a nice article. It has sort of the overall perspective of what's going on. As I said, it hasn't been edited yet. There's some comments on attitude towards current financial situation, that we're still under pressure. But this is very interesting, because in that very big article that's about e-commerce in general, recommerce and secondhand is now part of that article. So consumers who intend to increase secondhand purchase in Denmark, I assume the same behavior is available and relevant in Norway, is increasing. So if you look at the yellow line in the graph, it's bigger than the green. So there's an understanding that recommerce is good for your personal finances, it's good for your karma, it's good for the environment, and it just makes sense. And I think maybe making sense, being more intentional, using your brain and not your heart when you go shopping is what is driving a lot of this consumer behavior in a post-pandemic financial, economic turmoil, cost of living crisis. And the longer this situation, and we've been in this since the fall of 2022 in terms of high inflation and price being the major driver of consumer behavior, the longer this period, the longer this sentiment, the longer this intentional spending pattern is here, the more it will be part of the future. So just think about the behavior that started in September 2022. If we say that's going to last at least until end of 24, beginning of 25, until real wages catch up with inflation and interest rates go down. So that would be a bit of 2022, all of 23, all of 24, maybe some of 25. So 3-4 years, this then becomes the new norm. I know things will shift. Modern consumers will go, I need to get something new. That always happens, that when we're in a period of a long time where focusing on nostalgic heritage brand and recommerce has been the norm, we will counter-react at some point. But I believe that this will also be part of the new norm. And now the machine outside is backing up. I'm sorry for all the noise. As I said, intentional spending, brain is turned on, more considerate. We do spend money, and we do spend money on expensive items as well. We spend money on expensive furniture, expensive clothes, but when we do spend money on new items, it's a different set of arguments that come into play. Is this an item that has high value compared to price? Is this a product that I am willing to look at and wear for years and years and years? It has to be classic design, simple colors, simple design, so that it doesn't fall out of fashion, either furniture or interior items or fashion. You need to be sure that it's something that you want to hang on to for quite some time, because then you can argue in your own mind that you are willing to spend more money. And then sort of the thing that rolls the dice and makes it okay for you to spend a lot of money on an item, furniture, clothes, whatever, is, can I resell it at a good price? So recommerce also plays into new purchases, that it's part of your intentional brain activity. When you argue with yourself whether to buy something, one of the key questions is, can I sell it? And can I sell it at a reasonable price if I need to? So we've become very intentional, and we've also become very clear about our priorities. If we move a bit away from just spending patterns and more into values, we've become more focused on who we are, what we want to be. Our priorities have been more focused on family, on life close to where we live. We're more national. We're more focused on, in Denmark, it would be Danish brands. In Norway, it would be Norwegian brands, heritage, DNA. Very much more focused on that. And then if you have that ultimate combination of it being nice design, good quality for money, made in Norway, there's a full, you have a full plate of bingo dots and you're able to spend money. If we look at the behavior, we've chosen to create a word called vibe session, because some countries are in recession, some countries are not. We are not in recession in Denmark because we are partly owned by a company called Novo Nordisk. Novo Nordisk is producing a hell of a lot of medicine to help people lose weight, which is a huge success for us as a country, but it's one small part of the country that's making all of the money, whereas the rest of the economy is not doing really well. Sweden's in recession, Germany's been in recession, but it doesn't really matter whether you are in the real financial economic terms of recession. The behavior is still there. And this is why the word mood session or vibe session is very relevant. And if we look at the very sort of hard facts about what we see in the numbers, is that we are postponing major purchases. So you're thinking more about buying the car or the fridge or the expensive furniture or the expensive winter coat. You hunt for deals and lower prices. You eat less out. You do less frequent shopping. You increase the focus on essentials, and you focus more on activities that can happen at home. It's not that we're not go out. I'll comment on that in a short while. But we are reducing our overall consumption, and we're making sure that our everyday life spending is as limited as possible. Hence the focus on groceries close to sale by date or private label products. It's not that we're not spending money. We are spending huge amounts of money, but we're spending them on everything that we learned from Corona is of value. So it's health, helse in general, your physical health, your mental health, explosive sales in everything that has to do with inner beauty, collagen shots, supplements, vitamins, because you realize basically, and then I'm being a bit provocative, we realized during Corona that we are going to die, and we want to live as long as possible and make sure the body works. That's one area that's in huge growth. Apart from inner health and beauty, there's pets. Everything that's related to pets as it's exploded. You say that pets are your new children and plants are your new pets. So pets first and then plants. And then we spend a lot of money on our own personal hobbies. It can be hiking, yoga, de-stressing, knitting, whatever. We do spend a lot of money on that because we've chosen that that's important for us and money's not an issue. And then we spend a lot of time on being together with people we value. So we still go out, even on the list it says that we're eating out less. We still go out. We're still socializing. What restaurants are experiencing is unfortunately that instead of ordering 3 dishes, you order 2. Instead of having a glass of bottle of red wine, you buy a glass. So the turnover per person in a restaurant is now so low that it doesn't really make sense. And there's a sort of a different topic that sort of throws all of this very price sensitive thinking overboard, and that is time. We've also realized, apart from the fact that we're all going to die, we realized during Corona and during the lockdowns that time is a valuable asset. So we will still go out for dinner. We will still buy things up online. We will still have our windows cleaned or the dogs walked or buy takeaway because we value time. So time is still of essence. And if you look at the situation where you go out to have a quick dinner, you pay someone else to do the groceries, to decide what you have to eat, to chop up the groceries, to prepare the meal, to set the table, to clear the table, to do the dishes, to empty the dishwasher, to clear off the tables. You're paying someone else to do that because you value time. So in every purchase situation, there's a battle between price and time. And it can change during the day. During the morning, you're probably more interested in price and you're arguing with yourself that you need to do everything yourself from scratch. And then by end of day, your brain is toast and you buy takeaway. And that's perfectly fine. We're all very complex creatures. If you look at some of the more softer vibe session behaviors, we are looking for secure and reliable brands, heritage, DNA, strong brands. When we feel that the world's gone crazy, when we live in perma-crisis and polycrisis, we're looking for safety. We're looking for stories, anchoring, storytelling, authenticity, nationality, everything that makes us feel safe and where we recognize either the brand, the design, the expression, so that our nervous system can calm down because our nervous system is in high alert already. Right, so that was short term. And for me, short term is rest of 2024, possibly also 2025. We're going to be in this state of perma-crisis, polycrisis, the world is crazy, I need to navigate short term. And then we look at some of the longer term trends, and some of these trends are not new, they've just become even more relevant with all that we've been through. Consumers are increasingly impatient, demanding, and confused. And for those of you who have teenagers, just picture them. I have 2 16-year-old and a boy who's turning 18 soon. I feel that my image of what a teenager is, very impatient, doesn't have to wait, doesn't want to wait, have the attention span of a goldfish, which is about 8 or 9 seconds, very demanding, and extremely confused. And if you're just in that image of a fast-paced, high-velocity society where everyone is running around like crazy and want to be fully serviced, want the entire range of products, but don't want to pay for it. We want to be able to go to, in your case, a discount chain like Rema or Kiwi and buy really expensive ecological products. We want to buy stuff online, but we don't want to pay for shipping. And if we want to return things that we bought online, we want free shipping. And then we're extremely confused. And this is why this correlates very nicely with the two acronyms, VUCA and BARNI. We also suffer from different ailments. The first one is decision fatigue. You have about 50 to 60,000 thoughts every day running through your head. I don't know if you've counted them. 50 to 60,000 thoughts are running through your head every day. 75% of the activity and these thoughts are your inner dialogue. So it's the dialogue about, I'm trying to lose weight. There's cake. I eat cake. Ooh, I'm trying to lose weight, or I'm going to this meeting. I hate my job. Do I need to do something else? How do I handle this situation? Your inner dialogue takes up a lot of your mental space. And then you make about 2,000 decisions every day from when you get up till you go to bed. 2,000 decisions. So by end of day, afternoon, you are a modern consumer, gone into physical store, you need to buy either a set of clothes or dinner, and you're exposed to 15 different types of ketchup or 14 different types of dresses, and your brain just goes poof. You do not have the attention span or the decision power end of day to make this happen. And this speaks to the topic that's called paradox of choice. And in Retail Megamac, as I mentioned, that we're sending into printing next week, we've set aside some pages to expand on this topic, that in a overpaced, incontrollable, decision fatigue, time pressured world, the modern consumer never ask for 15 different types of a product, never. And it's in a sort of the perspective that the consumer is the king and they want variation and we need to show everything that we do, and that's fine, but make things easier, make things simpler. Studies show that a modern decision fatigue, time pressured brain can only handle 3 choices. We have run out of time and focus. We try to jam in 27 hours into a day. And for those of you who did go to school, you realize that 27 is not 24. As a consequence, when you wake up in the morning, you are running 3 hours behind. And we're running 3 hours behind every day because we have too much to do. We have KPIs in our business life. We have KPIs in our private life. And we also have a couple of series on Netflix that we need to see before we go to bed. And the consequence is that saving time for modern consumers, as I said, price and time are the key issues that are struggling in the minds of the modern consumer, that you need to help them save time. You may need to help them get to the end of the day more quickly. And we are addicted to convenience. I know this is a picture of food, but just think about easiness, accessibility, everything that makes your life easy. And in the grocery section, it's pre-chopped salad, as an example. Everything that where you can help the modern consumer is going to be valued. And particularly when we come out of this cost of living crisis and price is not the main issue anymore, convenience is going to be huge. As I mentioned, we've learned a lot coming out of Corona, and we've learned that we all want a balance in our lives. We want a balance between shopping online, shopping offline, shopping new stuff, or buying recommerce stuff, working from home, working in the office, traveling all the time, not traveling anywhere, being in Oslo, being in the Hytte, or being going skiing. We need a balance, and we're all striving for this, but we're not there yet. We are on our own personal path. We're also, as companies, on our path towards landing somewhere. We're not there yet. That was a long-term perspective. So now I've given you both sort of short-term, price-sensitive, what the hell's going on in the minds of the modern consumer, and I've given you some long-term trends. I wanted to give you also a 10-minute, 12-minute crash course in trend researching and trend spotting. We have since 2018 been running a 4-day course called Trends i Praksis. It's done with the local business school, and it's fully accredited, and you do get to go to an exam and get a nice diploma, which is nice. We run it both in Herning and Aarhus, where we are based, and in Copenhagen, and I've had the pleasure of having several Norwegian creative people on this class where they actually took a plane to Copenhagen to attend this 4-day course. This 4-day course is now going to be jammed into 10 minutes, so hold on to your horses and let me know if this is of any interest to you. So the first question is, why do we need to work with trends, and is there a point to the madness? One of the key models in understanding trends is that there's a lot of things going on that creates friction. There are drivers, there are enablers, there are blockers that create some sort of friction, and that friction leads to change. And understanding everything that's going on in society at different levels, economy, societal development, demographic development, urbanity, what's going on short term, long term, what are the sentiments of the consumer. Understanding all of this makes you able to decide or feel in your gut whether a particular change or friction is going to be enabled and grow further or will be blocked. When we look at trends, there are different types of trends. This is from a book by Elina Hiltunen that we included in the material for this course. There are different types of trends. There are wildcards that change everything and nothing goes back to normal. There are cyclical trends that come and go. One example is paisley print in fashion that comes and go, camo print that comes and go, the width of the jeans that come and go. We see this on and off during time. Then there's slow change. I wouldn't call the technological trends that we see now as slow change, but it is change that is coming that's going to change everything. It's for you guys, for Denmark, it's mobile pay. For you, it's Vips. Just think about within 5 years, we realize that we don't use cash anymore. This is an example. And then there are slower trends that sort of go up and then go back down. Is trends a delusion or common sense? What most people realize, no matter whether you work on product design, service design, communication, packaging, sales channel, that understanding and being on time with the trends is actually a competitive advantage. It's a competitive parameter where either the product you've developed sort of hits the spirit of time and trends of that period, and then is enabled by the spirit of time and the changes that are going on, or the opposite. What we've seen through time is headlines like this, that the internet may just be a passing fad as millions give up on it. As an example of trends being missed, we've had other examples. One of the most recent cases is AI. And when AI sort of rolled all over us from November last year, there was a reference to when the calculator hit students, and we had math teachers going into the streets to work against and be very aggressive and saying, we don't want the calculator as part of math in school, because then pupils, the students, won't be able to calculate very basic things and do algebra and such. But we realize today now that with the calculator and subsequently with the Excel spreadsheets, we can manipulate, we can handle much larger data sets. And with that reference, I think AI is going to create the same situation that at the moment we're very wary of what it's going to bring to us, but we do realize that this can change things on a larger scale. There's another problem with trends apart from missing them. The other problem with trends is that we often think that the future is going to look like today. I just mentioned cash going out of fashion, and that every payment is now not almost, but completely electronic. This is a case example of a street in London. And the thinking is that back in 1894, people would think that everybody would still be riding around on a horse. And this is horse manure. Interesting to show you that. But the thing is that if we didn't extrapolate and think that the future would be different and that we would be driving cars at some point, or bicycles or motorcycles, London would have been buried. So that's another example that we often get blinded or are unable to think of a future that's different than where we are today. Right. This is, again, sort of the movement trends, slow changes, wild cards and dying trends. And then we also have several types of trends that we talk about. We have big trends. They are trends that are long lasting, they're global, and they affect many industries. And then we have smaller trends that are short term. They affect regional, national, or locally, and they affect fewer industries. And if you're happy with this division into two types of trends, you're fine. If you want more details, we actually work with more types of trends. We have gigatrends, megatrends, microtrends, fads, and niche trends. I'll show you some examples of what they are. Gigatrends are societal changes that last for 10 to 30 years and change our life structure and living conditions. This can be females, women entering into the workforce. This can be technological changes, demographical changes that slowly, day by day, changes the way we live, the way we work, the way we communicate, but we don't really think about it. And then 10 years go by and we go, wow, what happened there? Mega trends are trends that are clearly related to zeitgeist and the current economic climate. So this description of perma-crisis, poly-crisis, cost of living crisis, intentional spending, this is me describing the current zeitgeist and the mega trends that are relevant for the coming years. Microtrends are trends that we see in products, in services, and often last 6 months to 3 years. And to make sure that you sort of force yourself to name the trends, we work with either, I'll just show you there are fads and hypes as well, but please don't go there. They're very difficult to work with and most people lose a lot of money on them. But I'll give you an example of how we try to take stuff that's so fluffy as trends and put it into very simple structures. So a trend matrix looks like this. We have the gigatrends, the megatrends, the microtrends, and the fads, and you can work from top to bottom or bottom to top. So I'll give you the example of Disney Toy Story Surprise Egg. You look at that and you go, what the hell is going on? Why is everybody into that? And you understand, well, it's part of the unboxing trend. That's part of the huge e-commerce trend. That's part of the overall digitization. I'll give you the other example. Health leads to increased exercising, and one of the most hyped exercising types through the last 10 years is yoga. And then within yoga, we have goat yoga or yin yoga. And we can also do a hierarchy like this, where we have gigatrend at the top, megatrend and microtrend. The digitization can just think of house of cards. Digitization can lead to both e-commerce, working from home. Under e-commerce, you have unboxing and social selling. Under working from home, you have Zoomwear and homelancing. Zoomwear is where you only wear nice clothes from your waist up. And homelancing is freelancers working from home. We love coming up with new words. And just if you look at this hierarchy and think of it as a house of cards, you also get the understanding that if you pull out one of the cards, the entire hierarchy collapses. So that helps you understand that the trends are very much related to each other. There are other trend curves. They don't have to look very nice and smooth. They can go up and down. There can be enablers, blockers along the way that either stops or changes the direction of a trend. So just to make you understand that it isn't as simple as most people would think they are. We also steal from the theory of Everett Rogers and understanding that some consumers are innovators and early adopters and find everything new extremely interesting and are willing to try out something that's new all the time, whereas the late majority and laggards often want to wait. And then we have a specific type of trends that are called shark fin trends. These are trends that spiral and go viral very quickly, but also die just as quickly. So they're sort of in the fad and hype category and very difficult to work with. Right. Next 5 minutes, very compressed time. This is based on the last two runs that I did with students on Trends i Praksis. We've done 13 courses, I think. We sat down and helped each other create a list of gigatrends. And gigatrends are trends that span for 10 to 13 years. They radically change our life structures and conditions. They have a global effect and contain elements of economics, politics, technology, and demography. So we tried to map out all of the gigatrends that we find will shape the next 10 to 30 years. And we did this last year, and I'm happy to share all of it with you. We've divided them into six different areas. So world, people, work, economy, and trade. We haven't gone into like very much detail with it. We did write an article based on it, but it's still very high level. If we look at the world, it's topics like this: increased globalization, increased democratization, increased urbanization. I know we've talked about during Corona, people moved away from the bigger cities to get out into nature and be able to pay for a house, but that doesn't change the overall gigatrends that urban living and moving towards city centers or city areas is the way things are going. Climate, resource stress, and then last year we decided to put geopolitical instability on the list. If we did this list back in 2018, that wouldn't have been on the list. So this is also an example of how the world changes and how friction and political instability changes the way of the world and changes how things are developing. That's very high level on the world. And then let's look at people, both in individuals and groups. Increased life expectancy. We are expected to live longer. Kids that are born today are expected to live at least until they're 100. And the rest of us are desperately trying to run with the longevity trend and eating all sorts of crazy supplements to try to live as long as possible. As a consequence, we have a senior boom. We also have what is called, I listened to a podcast this weekend called the baby doom. So we have senior boom and baby doom. We do not make enough kids, and that's now become apparent to most governments and political parties, and they're now pouring money into fertility treatment because long term we're going to have a huge problem because we don't have enough taxpayers and people to make the welfare system run around. New family structures. Just understanding the key term family. We have 37 different family types. Every second marriage ends in divorce and new family creations. You also have rainbow families and different types of families. So just the word family has changed. We have 6 different generations that are living alongside and have different perspectives on what life is, good work life. We are very much focused on diversity and inclusion. We have, 12 different sexes, and we've become more inclusive in the way that we think, and that's going to be even more apparent in the future. Minority power, healthy living is a huge trend that's going to explode within the next years as well. Let's move on to work. Work life. Things have shifted there as well. We live in a knowledge society, and that's going to be even more apparent as AI takes over some of the more boring work types. So the types of work that are very repetitive, where everything is sort of fit into boxes, or in tech, not just in numbers, but also in text. It can be proofreading or translating, all the stuff that takes up minimal brain capacity or is very boring will disappear. We also see that AI, in terms of Midjourney, DALL-E, and other examples, are moving into more creative thinking. They become sparring partners. And what we're going to live off in the future is imagination and creativity and knowledge. Acceleration and complexity, you probably all feel that your work life has become more high-paced, that your email inbox looks like shit on a daily basis, and that you are very pressed for time in everything that you do. Your life, your work life has become even more complex. And then also in terms of the people part that I showed you, we do have multi-generational workforce issues. In some companies, you can have 4, perhaps even 5 different generations in the same workplace, and they have very different understanding of work, what work is, what good work life is, whether they need an annual meeting or daily feedback. That's one of the key issues. New definitions of career. Career might not just be crawling upwards in the ladder, but it can also be crawling horizontally or moving to a different type of job. We unfortunately see a lot of younger generational workforce not being interested in running a company, not being interested in being entrepreneurs, not being interested in working more than 30 hours a week, and not wanting to manage other people. So we need to work on that in the future. Network, remote working, doing stuff like this, being part of networks, having Teams, Zoom, Skype meetings with everyone around the world, not an issue anymore. And we're also trying to manage our work-life balance. And even the word, I read an article last week that the very core of this, the definition of work-life balance, is wrong, because you are a person whether you are at work or at home, and most people think about their job when they're home. So it's a weird way to look at it. 4, economy. More huge scale. We're all looking towards economic growth, and even though we are all interested in recommerce and saving the planet, we're all living off of each other, and we're all interested in creating economic growth, particularly in the countries that are now suffering from recession. There's a huge focus on turning around the economy. Power shift. Different economic centers. In the past, it was the US and Europe who were the big brother, big sister. Now it's Asia, so things are shifting. Middle class all over the world is getting access to the life that we want to live. So at the very high level, we are all going for a more green and sustainable world. The problem is that we have huge parts of the world that want the life that we've been living for the last 20 years, and that's going to have an effect as well. Service and experience economy is about us not wanting to think about the specific ingredients or products, but wanting the service and the experience. And that's based on Pine and Gilmore's theory about the experience economy. And then everything that can be sold will be sold and will be commercialized. My favorite example is dog walking, which I did not expect to see in Denmark, but it's now a thing. And then it's also where you pay someone to walk your dogs in a professional manner. There are doggy daycares as well, also a new concept. And then the Same Old Line dudes in New York, who's been well known for many, many years, they run a business where their main service is standing in line for other people. So if you want the new iPhone, new sneaks, concert tickets, whatever, you pay these guys to stand in line for you. So everything can be commercialized and made into money. And then, of course, there's the green CSR, sustainable. I know there's a discussion about what the wording needs to be, whether it's sustainable, green, bærekraft. We need to figure out what to call it. Trade, shopping. Retail version 3.0, we've gone through lockdown. We realized that we were missing and needed physical stores. We went back to the physical stores, realized they were boring. So we are now reinventing physical retail in a version 3.0, where some of the retail stores will actually have secondhand and recommerce items. E-commerce will continue to grow. Omnichannel will be the future, where online and offline is interlinked. Modern consumers expect online and offline to be interlinked. Subscription services, everything that makes your life easy. Subscribing to, for men, you can describe for socks and ties. It can be underwear. It can be everything you need to shave. It can be food. Everything that again, frees up time is going to be huge. Not right now. We need to get out of the cost of living crisis, but that's going to be huge. Platform economy is specifically platforms and alternative channels, is particularly the recommerce part. So platforms is Amazon and other examples. Alternatives sales channels are the vintage stores, pop-up formats, recommerce formats that are now moving in and taking quite a big chunk of the overall trade. And then the last one, wrong number, is tech, everything that has to do with new technology, artificial intelligence, hyperconnectivity, Internet of Things. As an example, we're very close. We've been talking about the smart fridge for quite some years, that we hope that in the future our fridge will order milk by itself. And we're getting there, because with AI, you can first of all give the AI a prompt that says, I have this and that in my fridge, what can I make for dinner? But it can also now help you keep track of what's in your fridge and help you order it directly. Biotech and life science is just a comment on the fact that we've all now realized how important biotech is, from Denmark, from a national economic perspective, because we're all living off the Novo Nordisk money, but also that there's been a new and increased interest in everything that has to optimizing your body, getting vaccination, having you tested, doing full body MR scanning. So that those are examples as well. Last two slides, I think, two or three slides. I'll give you an example. Digitalization, the way that we try to box all of this in, again, like the matrix or the hierarchy of trends, is that if we combine the gigatrend, digitization and hyperconnectivity, I've just taken two, and then the white box is the description of the problem, and then the gray brownish box is the solution. So we live in a world where we all suffer from infobesity. We have too much information and our brains are getting fed up with it. We're hyper exhausted and we suffer from decision fatigue. The response would be digital detox, slow down, and fewer choices. Another example is growth, middle class getting access and everything being up for sale. The white box is describing the overall problem or the situation. Consumerism, stuffication, you have too much stuff. Material fatigue, that we don't want more stuff, we want experiences and time. And the answers are moving from more to better, decluttering and new luxury. And then my last one is combination of healthy living, digitization and globalization, transformation economy, extreme noise sensitivity in a world that's gone crazy and makes a lot of noise and that we're always on. The response is trying to be a better you instead of just hunting career moves or the next MBA or whatever, focusing on yourself and who you want to be as a person, seeking silence and sleep renaissance. So everything that has to do with sleep and making healthy decisions for your sleep and restoration is in focus. And what we've done during this course is that we've forced everyone to create overviews like this. And ta-da, I've ended the presentation so far. I know in the slides that I've sent to you guys and will be distributed afterwards, there are also a few key slides from our trend book, Pej Toolbox, Spring Summer 2025, so that you can see some of the colors and design ideas for that season. Beyond that, I'm happy to end my talking now. And then if you have any questions, please dump them in the chat.
Thank you very, very much, Louise. That was right.
All over the place.
Yeah, that was a lot of things. Very, very interesting and inspiring. I'm sure we will be discussing this for a long time in NF&TA, and of course, all the ones that have been listening. If you have questions, if you think this is interesting, you will get all the material, and please contact us for further, continuation on this topic. There is now one thing came into the chat, and now suddenly my screen is very slow, so it's not coming up. Yeah, that was just more praise for
just
you.
A comment, yeah. That's
Yeah.
fine. I'm happy to take that as well. But do feel the team behind this event has my email address, so no worries. If you have questions, just reach out.
Yes. So then I think we just leave it at that. And thank you again very much. And I hope we speak again sometime. That was really exciting.
Tack för
Thank
idag
you,
och
Louise, and thanks everybody who came and listened.